Ethan had always loved two things above all else: curiosity and jokes. The first kept him exploring the far reaches of the galaxy's technology. The second made the long hours in the lab bearable. Today, though, he had a feeling that his curiosity and humor might get him into trouble. Big trouble. It was a bright, buzzing morning at Station Aurora, a sprawling human research station orbiting the peaceful planet Lyra 7. Outside the tall windows, the planet glowed in soft blue and green, its oceans reflecting the light of a distant star. Inside, the station hummed with activity. Scientists moving between labs, traders checking data, and engineers repairing drones that endlessly patrolled the station. Ethan, however, was buried in a corner of Lab 12, surrounded by glowing monitors, holographic devices, and a clutter of alien specimens that looked like something out of a dream. Okay, he muttered to himself, rubbing his temples. If I adjust the energy field here, maybe the neural sync will respond better. He typed furiously on the console, sending waves of data through the lab's holographic interface. Around him, holograms flickered to life, tiny alien creatures, performing loops, wings fluttering, and tails swishing in simulated wind. Ethan leaned back, watching the creatures dance across the holographic grid. He let out a small chuckle. "You know," he said aloud, as if talking to no one. "Sweet Fang. That would be the perfect name for one of you." He waved his hand lazily, thinking it was just a silly joke. "Yeah, Sweet Fang. Sounds cute but dangerous." Then something impossible happened. A sudden shimmer appeared above the console, like heat waves rising from hot metal. The air vibrated with a faint hum, and a soft glow grew in intensity until it formed a solid shape. Ethan blinked, rubbed his eyes, and froze. A creature, real, not holographic, stood on his desk. It was small, no taller than a foot, but its presence filled the room. Its fur shimmered like molten silver, and its eyes glowed with a golden light. A long, fluffy tail flicked back and forth, curling in patterns that seemed intelligent rather than random. Sharp, delicate fangs peeked out from its mouth, but they didn't look threatening. Instead, the creature's face held a playful grin, like it knew a joke only it could understand. Ethan's jaw dropped. I didn't... How?" he stammered. The creature tilted its head, flicked its tail, and hopped lightly to the center of his desk. It sniffed the console, then tapped a paw on the holographic projections. The tiny holograms wavered and distorted, almost as if the creature's mere presence made them come alive in a new way. "You're real," Ethan whispered, barely believing it. "You're actually real." The creature let out a soft, musical trill. Ethan noticed the sound wasn't just a noise, it felt like communication, as if it carried meaning he couldn't quite grasp. He waved his hand cautiously, trying to see how it would react. "Hey, Sweet Fang," he said, repeating the name from earlier. "Did you respond to me?" The creature's ears perked up, and it hopped closer, its glowing eyes fixed on him. And it suddenly spoke. Not with words as humans understood, but a soft, telepathic projection that filled Ethan's mind. "Yes, Sweet Fang. You called me." Ethan froze. He wasn't prepared for an alien to communicate this way, and yet it was clear, simple, and undeniable. I called you? I didn't mean... it was just a joke. Joke or not, I am here." The creature, or Sweet Fang, stretched her small body, curling her tail around a glowing test tube on Ethan's desk. She batted at the tube with a paw, sending it spinning across the table, narrowly missing a stack of data pads. Ethan leapt forward to catch it. Okay, don't break anything," he said, exasperated, though part of him couldn't help smiling. She was playful, clever, and unpredictable. Everything a good lab assistant wasn't supposed to be. He stepped back and observed her more carefully. Her fur shimmered in colors that changed with the light, from silver to pale lavender to hints of gold. Her eyes, golden and intelligent, seemed to study him with curiosity. Every movement was precise and deliberate, yet full of energy, like she was learning, testing, and playing all at once. Ethan's mind raced. This is impossible. Summoning creatures? That's ancient legend stuff. Only stories for children. There's no way. And yet here she was on his desk, tail flicking like a metronome, entirely real and entirely focused on him. All right, Ethan said slowly, trying to regain control. You came from that word I said? He pointed vaguely at the empty air where his joke had originated. Sweet Fang? Yes. Ethan sat down hard in his chair, running a hand over his face. I don't even know what to do. Do I feed you? Are you dangerous? Can I even... He stopped mid-sentence as Sweet Fang hopped onto the holographic grid. The lights of the tiny alien simulations flickered and warped under her paws, but she didn't destroy anything. Instead, the holograms seemed to respond, to her performing movements even more complex than programmed. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. You're improving my experiments? You're enhancing the simulations? Yes, Ethan blinked. This is incredible. He leaned closer, almost whispering. You understand me perfectly. Sweet Fang let out a musical trill, bouncing lightly as if in agreement. Her tail flicked back and forth rapidly, leaving small, glowing streaks in the air. Ethan could hardly stop staring. Okay, he said finally, sitting back and trying to think. You're here. You understand me, but I have to figure out what you are, what you want, and how to keep the rest of the station from freaking out. Sweet Fang's eyes sparkled as if she understood every word. Then she did something completely unexpected. She nudged one of the floating data pads toward him, as if insisting he pay attention to it. On the pad, holographic patterns swirled, data points forming images of other creatures, landscapes, and symbols he didn't recognize. Wait, Ethan said, leaning forward. You want me to study you? Or help you? Both. Learn and help. Play and learn. Ethan laughed nervously. Great. Just great. I accidentally summoned an alien. She's smarter than me, she's chaotic, and she wants me to work. With her. He rubbed his face again. And the station, I have to. They can't see this. Not yet. I mean, Sweet Fang jumped lightly onto his keyboard, making the monitors flicker. She stared up at him, golden eyes gleaming, almost daring him to try to stop her. Ethan sighed. Fine, you win. But if you break something, I swear. She batted at a holographic projection of a tiny alien creature, sending it into a loop he hadn't programmed. The projection danced in a new beautiful pattern, almost as if she were composing it herself. Ethan couldn't help smiling. All right, he said finally, leaning back. You're staying, for now. Sweet Fang? Yes, that's your name. But, I swear, if anyone asks, you're just a experimental assistant. Yeah, that's what we'll call you. Sweet Fang purred, though it wasn't a normal purr. It vibrated in the air, resonating like a soft melody, filling the room with an oddly comforting hum. Ethan could feel it in his chest. He was supposed to be scared, overwhelmed, and panicked, but instead he felt excited. Something in him clicked. The humans had explored stars, discovered new worlds, and made contact with alien civilizations, but here was something different. This was an intelligent, playful being, appearing through sheer coincidence or perhaps fate, and choosing to interact with him. Ethan reached out slowly, his hand hovering near her shimmering fur. She didn't back away. Instead, she nudged his hand with her small head. Okay, he said softly. We're going to figure this out, together. Outside, the station's automated drones hummed along their patrols, unaware of the miracle unfolding inside Lab 12. For the first time in his life, Ethan realized that human ingenuity wasn't just about technology or data. Sometimes it was about curiosity, courage, and the willingness to embrace the unexpected. Sweet Fang flicked her tail again, hopped lightly on the desk, and seemed to grin. Ethan couldn't help laughing. You really are a Sweet Fang, aren't you? He said. And in that moment, as the alien and the human stared at each other, both curious and playful, Ethan felt the first spark of a bond that would change not just his life, but perhaps the future of the station, the planet, and maybe even the galaxy. The adventure had begun. The first night after Sweet Fang appeared on his desk, Ethan hardly slept. Every few minutes he checked the lab, half expecting her to vanish or cause chaos. But there she was, curled in a soft, glowing ball on his desk, tail wrapped neatly around her body, eyes closed yet shimmering faintly in the dim lab light. Ethan realized something remarkable. She wasn't just a creature of instinct. Her calm, deliberate posture, even in rest, suggested intelligence far beyond what he could imagine, and unlike any alien species he had studied before, Sweet Fang seemed aware of him, not just physically, but emotionally. He gently pulled up a chair and sat, watching her. How am I supposed to study this? He wondered. Traditional methods wouldn't work. No cages, no experiments. She didn't respond like a lab specimen. Instead, she observed, reacted, and perhaps even judged him. Morning arrived slowly. The station's soft light filtered through the lab windows, casting a warm glow on the metallic surfaces. Sweet Fang stirred, blinking her golden eyes. Her tail flicked once, twice. Then she hopped lightly onto a nearby monitor, tapping it with a paw. The holographic simulations flickered and twisted, changing patterns as if she were trying to communicate something. Ethan leaned forward, fascinated. You're showing me something, aren't you? A soft musical trill filled the room. It vibrated gently, carrying a sense of urgency, curiosity, and playfulness all at once. Ethan instinctively understood the meaning, though the sound had no words. Learn, Ethan nodded. Right. We learn together. Okay, let's see what you can do. He activated the holographic interface. Alien symbols, floating patterns, and energy grids appeared. Sweet Fang hopped from one grid to another, tapping and swiping with her small paws. Each movement caused the holograms to shift in ways Ethan hadn't programmed. Some patterns aligned perfectly, showing intricate designs he hadn't imagined. Others were chaotic yet somehow balanced. This is amazing, he murmured. You're enhancing the simulations. You're not just a creature. You're a collaborator. Sweet Fang tilted her head, tail curling as if she understood the compliment. She tapped one particular projection repeatedly. Ethan leaned in closer, studying the symbols. They resembled a language, though he had never seen it before. Yet there was logic in the patterns, almost mathematical. You're teaching me? He said, voice low with awe. Or maybe learning from me? Both, came the thought, clear in his mind. Play and learn together. Ethan laughed softly. I didn't know an alien could do this. You're incredible. He spent the next several hours experimenting. Sweet Fang learned quickly, mimicking the holographic controls almost instantly. She seemed to understand complex patterns, sequences, and interactions, sometimes even improving them. Ethan couldn't help but notice how human curiosity mirrored in her playful intelligence. Humans had always solved problems creatively, and now he realized this small creature could too, but with a perspective entirely alien. By afternoon, Ethan realized he had to feed her. He opened a container of nutrient gel he had prepared for lab experiments. Sweet Fang sniffed it, then licked a tiny portion delicately. She seemed satisfied but not gluttonous. Her movements were precise, almost ceremonial. You're very careful, Ethan said. Nothing wasted, nothing careless, just intelligent, focused, yet playful. Playful is part of learning, she conveyed. Ethan grinned. I think we can work with that. But I also need to figure out how the rest of the station sees you. If anyone finds out, there will be questions, complications, maybe even panic. Sweet Fang hopped onto the desk, tail flicking, and tapped a security monitor. Ethan realized she wanted to see the cameras, the other labs, and the station corridors. Her golden eyes scanned everything in seconds, memorizing patterns, routines, and energy flows. She's observing everything, Ethan whispered. You're learning. The station faster than I could in a month. I learn. You learn. Together, Sweet Fang replied mentally. Ethan spent the rest of the day cautiously introducing her to basic lab equipment. She batted at test tubes, but instead of spilling them, she manipulated them carefully, aligning them in geometric patterns. She even began interacting with small drones, controlling them instinctively. The drones didn't resist, they seemed to accept her guidance, almost as if her presence commanded trust. "This is beyond anything I imagined," Ethan said. "You could change how humans interact with alien species. If we document this, explain this, the galaxy won't believe it." Sweet Fang's eyes gleamed with what felt like amusement. She nudged a floating holographic tablet toward him. The symbols on it shifted, forming shapes and sequences he recognized as problem-solving algorithms, but presented in an entirely new way. "Teach. Learn. Play," she conveyed again. Ethan leaned back, amazed. He realized she was not only intelligent but adaptable. Humans often prided themselves on ingenuity, on seeing solutions others missed. Here he saw a reflection of that creativity in her, a small, alien, fox-like creature, yet amplified by instinct combined with intelligence, instinct guided by curiosity. By evening, Ethan faced another challenge: containment. He couldn't let Sweet Fang roam the station freely, yet he also couldn't confine her. Any attempt would frustrate her, and she was far too clever to be trapped. He sighed, realizing he had to create a compromise. "Okay," he said, "for now, you stay here with me. We'll figure out the rest slowly. You're my responsibility. But I promise, I'll learn from you too." Sweet Fang curled on the desk, tail flicking slowly. Ethan noticed a subtle glow radiating from her fur, almost like she was content or approving. The next day, Ethan decided to test communication further. He spoke aloud, asking simple questions while observing her reactions. "What do you like?" he asked, observing, learning, playing, and "Do you understand humans?" "Yes." "Fascinating." Ethan laughed. "I never thought I'd meet a creature that thinks this way. You're like nothing I've ever seen. And somehow, you remind me of humans too. Curious, clever, bold." Sweet Fang's tail flicked faster, almost like a small laugh. Ethan realized she understood his meaning perfectly. They were learning from each other in real time. Later, he tried a small test. He drew a pattern on the holographic pad, a series of interconnected triangles, asking her to mimic it. Sweet Fang watched intently, then tapped, swiped, and arranged shapes, yet instead of copying exactly, she added complexity, interweaving new forms into the design. Ethan's eyes widened. "You improved it. You didn't just copy it, you made it better." "Better together," she replied. Ethan couldn't stop smiling. I think you just became my favorite research partner." Throughout the day, Sweet Fang explored the lab. She learned to operate simple devices, experimented with holographic projections, and even helped Ethan organize complex data sets. It wasn't just mimicry. She had intuition, creativity, and judgment. And unlike humans, she did it all without hesitation, doubt, or fear. By nightfall, Ethan sat back in his chair, exhausted but exhilarated. Sweet Fang curled in a glowing ball on his desk, tail flicking once, twice, and finally resting. I can't wait to see what tomorrow brings," Ethan said softly. "You're extraordinary, and somehow, I think we're going to do incredible things together." Outside, the stars twinkled beyond the lab windows as if the galaxy itself was watching this unlikely friendship bloom. For Ethan, the discovery wasn't just about science. It was about connection, about understanding intelligence, curiosity, and creativity beyond his own species. And for Sweet Fang, it was about play, learning, and forming a bond that could bridge worlds. The day ended with the lab quiet, except for the faint hum of equipment and the soft glow of an alien companion. Ethan knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders, dangers, and mysteries, but for the first time he felt ready. Together, he and Sweet Fang could face whatever came next. And as he turned off the lights and prepared to rest, he couldn't stop thinking. Sometimes the most extraordinary discoveries didn't come from data or technology. They came from a leap of curiosity, a playful word, and an alien who decided to sit on your desk. Tomorrow promised more learning, more surprises, and undoubtedly, more chaos. But Ethan smiled. He was ready. The next morning, Lab 12 was unusually quiet. Ethan arrived early, coffee in hand, hoping for a calm start. Sweet Fang, however, had other plans. The small alien was perched on the edge of his console, eyes glowing faintly as she observed the lab with keen interest. Her tail flicked slowly, then suddenly swished with lightning speed. Ethan set down his coffee, already sensing something was about to happen. "Good morning, Sweet Fang. Please don't—" But it was too late. With a small leap, she landed onto a floating holographic control pad. Instantly, the lab lights flickered, and the tiny alien simulations across the room shimmered erratically. Some began to spin, while others glitched into strange, mesmerizing shapes. Ethan jumped to stabilize the system, but Sweet Fang merely tilted her head, tail flicking proudly. You did it again," Ethan muttered, frowning. "I just need to show them you're safe, that you're not a hazard. But if the station security sees this—" Sweet Fang let out a trill, bouncing lightly. The sound was musical but carried a clear message. Observe. Learn. Adapt. Ethan sighed, realizing she wasn't being destructive. She was curious, experimenting, exploring. Her playful interference wasn't random chaos. It was a form of learning, guided by intelligence he couldn't fully comprehend. "All right," he said cautiously. "We'll do this together. But please, don't touch the energy panels again." Sweet Fang tilted her head as if questioning the request. Then, with a small flick of her paw, she tapped the console in a controlled pattern. A few holograms stabilized while others began to form new designs, complex, symmetrical, and surprisingly useful. Ethan blinked in amazement. "You improve the data grid," he whispered. "You're not just curious. You're helpful." Her tail flicked rapidly, almost like a nod of approval. Ethan shook his head in disbelief. "I didn't think an alien could understand human technology so quickly. You're incredible." By mid-morning, Ethan realized that Sweet Fang's presence was already attracting attention. Station staff passing the lab doorway paused, their eyes widening at the sight of the glowing, fox-like alien perched atop a holographic control panel. One of the visiting engineers, a tall man named Rylan, peeked in cautiously. "Ethan, what is that?" Ethan froze. This is my experimental assistant," he said, hoping his humor would mask the truth. Sweet Fang's ears perked up and she let out a soft trill, almost like she understood the conversation. Rylan raised an eyebrow. "Experimental assistant?" "Yes," Ethan said quickly. "She helps with data analysis. Very advanced." He gestured vaguely. "See? She's valuable." Raylan stared for a moment, then nodded slowly. "If you say so, but be careful. Security drones are programmed to report anomalies. You don't want them interfering." Ethan swallowed nervously. "I know, I'm working on containment protocols, don't worry." Raylan left, still glancing back at Sweet Fang. Ethan exhaled. "You're making me nervous, you know that?" he said softly. Sweet Fang tilted her head and flicked her tail as if amused. Nervous, but intrigued. The day passed with Ethan carefully testing Sweet Fang's abilities. She could manipulate holographic systems, learn complex patterns, and even control small drones instinctively. Ethan realized she was learning the station's systems faster than he could explain. He watched her guide the drones, forming efficient patrol patterns and optimizing their movements with a precision humans took weeks to achieve. "This is amazing," he murmured. "You're not just playful, you're brilliant. And the station, they don't even realize how much potential you have." However, by late afternoon, the first real challenge appeared. Sweet Fang, curious about the energy panel near the lab's entrance, leapt onto it. Sparks flashed as she interacted with the controls, causing a minor energy surge. Alarms beeped, lights flickered, and the lab's automated security systems kicked in. Ethan rushed forward. "No! Stop! Don't!" But Sweet Fang, ever curious, tapped a small sequence on the panel. The surge stabilized, but not before several lab devices went offline temporarily. Ethan groaned. This is exactly what I was worried about." If security sees this, they'll think you're dangerous. Sweet Fang looked up at him, golden eyes wide and innocent. Her tail flicked slowly, almost apologetically. He sighed. Okay, deep breath. We fixed this quietly without alarming anyone. You helped, but you have to learn control. Can you do that? Try, she responded mentally. Ethan nodded. Good. That's a start. He spent the next hour repairing minor damage and rerouting energy flows. Sweet Fang observed silently, occasionally nudging devices in ways that improved efficiency. He realized she was learning from his repairs, adapting faster than he could anticipate. By evening, Ethan decided to run a controlled test. He set up holographic grids with energy feedback loops and allowed Sweet Fang to manipulate them. At first, she made mistakes. Patterns misaligned, energy spikes occurred. But within minutes, she corrected herself, producing perfect arrangements that even Ethan had not anticipated. This is incredible, he whispered. You're learning from mistakes just like humans do, but faster. You're a genius. Sweet Fang purred softly, her tail flicking with satisfaction. Ethan smiled. I think we can work together to improve the lab, but we need a plan. You can't just touch everything you see, we need rules. Rules. Play with rules. Learn, she replied. Ethan nodded. Exactly. We'll create rules, but still keep room for creativity. Just as he was beginning to feel confident, a sharp beep interrupted them. A security drone hovered near the lab entrance, sensors glowing. Ethan's heart raced. If the drone detected Sweet Fang as an anomaly, the station could lock down Lab 12, or worse, send containment units. Stay calm, he whispered. We can't let it see you. You understand? Sweet Fang crouched low, tail tucked, as the drone scanned the room. Ethan quickly deactivated nearby holographic projections to avoid false readings. The drone paused, its sensors sweeping over the room, then moved on. Ethan exhaled in relief. That was too close, he muttered. We need better control. Stealth. You have to learn when to hide, too. Learn hiding, Sweet Fang mentally responded. Ethan realized the lesson wasn't just about her. It was about humans, too. He had to adapt, find creative solutions, and think ahead. And in that, he felt a strange sense of pride. Humans were known for ingenuity, for adapting to the unexpected. And now, in this lab, with this small alien on his desk, that ingenuity was being put to the ultimate test. By nightfall, the lab was quiet again. Sweet Fang curled in a glowing ball on the desk, eyes half closed but alert. Ethan sat back, exhausted but exhilarated. You're not just a problem, he said softly. You're an opportunity, something incredible. And together we can do more than I ever imagined. Sweet Fang's tail flicked in agreement. Together. Ethan smiled. For the first time, he felt that human creativity and curiosity, combined with intelligence from beyond his world, could truly change everything. The challenge was real. The stakes were high, but he wasn't afraid. Humans had faced impossible odds before, and now, with Sweet Fang at his side, he was ready to face whatever came next. The night passed with Ethan, watching Sweet Fang sleep lightly on the desk, tail flicking in dreams. He knew tomorrow would bring more trials, more learning, and undoubtedly more trouble. But he also knew something powerful. Humans, with their creativity, courage, and curiosity, could forge friendships and discoveries, even with beings from worlds beyond imagination. And for Sweet Fang, this human, with all his quirks, jokes, and curiosity, was already a worthy companion. Together they would learn, explore, and perhaps even surprise the galaxy itself. Tomorrow, Ethan thought, would be the true test. The next morning, Lab 12 was buzzing with unusual energy. Ethan was already at his console reviewing the station's data feeds when a faint warning light blinked in the corner. It was subtle at first, almost easy to ignore, but he caught it immediately. That's odd, he muttered, tapping the console. Energy readings. Slight fluctuations near the station's perimeter. Sweet Fang, perched on the edge of the desk, tilted her head and flicked her tail. The small creature's glowing eyes fixed on the sensors, studying the patterns in ways that seemed almost analytical. Ethan smiled. Looks like you're paying Attention to. Good. Maybe you can help me figure this out. Before he could take another step, alarms blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed, and automated voice warnings echoed through the corridors. Warning. Unidentified drone swarm approaching. All personnel take precautionary measures. Ethan's heart raced. He had trained for emergencies before, but nothing like this. A rogue drone swarm was approaching, an organized attack of automated machines from a nearby system. Their purpose was unclear, but the potential damage to the station was catastrophic. "Sweet Fang," Ethan said, urgency in his voice. "We have to act. Can you help me?" She tilted her head and let out a trill, tail, flicking sharply. Yes. Ethan took a deep breath and assessed the situation. The station's defenses were designed for small intrusions, not a coordinated swarm. Traditional weapons might slow them down, but they would not prevent serious damage. He realized the only solution was to combine his knowledge with Sweet Fang's unique abilities. "All right then," he muttered. "Let's do this. Together." He quickly accessed the station's holographic grid, projecting drone paths and energy nodes across the main control console. Sweet Fang leapt onto the grid, tapping at points with her delicate paws. The holographic drones shifted in real time as she adjusted their projected paths. Ethan noticed something extraordinary. She was predicting the swarm's movements, anticipating patterns, and suggesting countermeasures almost instantly. You can see their logic," Ethan whispered. "Not just react, anticipate." "Yes. Learn? Adapt," she replied mentally. Ethan grinned. "Then we're a team, humans and, well, you." Together, they devised a plan. Ethan would control the station's primary energy fields, creating temporary barriers, while Sweet Fang would manipulate the small drones and auxiliary systems to disrupt the swarm's formation. As the first drones appeared on the station's perimeter sensors, Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline. "Here we go," he whispered. The energy fields activated, forming glowing barriers that pulsed with power. Several drones collided with the shields and spun out of control, their sensors scrambling. Sweet Fang darted across the holographic control panels, guiding the station's smaller drones with incredible precision. They intercepted the rogue machines, redirecting them back toward open space. The coordination was seamless, almost like a dance. Ethan's mind raced as he adjusted the energy grids, predicting drone movement, while Sweet Fang responded instantly, guiding the smaller units with instinctive accuracy. It was human ingenuity amplified by alien instinct and intelligence. The swarm adapted quickly, shifting tactics. Ethan realized the drones weren't mindless. They were programmed with learning algorithms capable of changing formation. If he and Sweet Fang didn't respond fast enough, the station could be overwhelmed. "Sweet Fang, we need a new pattern, now," he shouted. She leapt from console to console, golden eyes glowing brighter than before. With a precise sequence of taps, she rerouted auxiliary drones into a counterclockwise formation, intercepting the swarm at multiple angles. Ethan adjusted the energy barriers simultaneously, creating a funnel that guided the rogue drones into a controlled zone. The plan worked perfectly. The swarm, caught in the trap, began colliding with itself, confusion spreading through their programmed logic. The station's sensors showed several drones deactivated, and others pushed harmlessly into open space. Ethan exhaled, sweat dripping down his face. That was incredible," he said softly. Sweet Fang perched proudly on the console, tail flicking like a metronome. "We did it," she replied mentally. But the battle wasn't over. More drones appeared, this time faster and more coordinated. Ethan's confidence wavered, but Sweet Fang's determined eyes reminded him of one thing. Humans, when combined with creativity and courage, could overcome the impossible. "All right, new strategy," he muttered. "We can't just block them. We have to trick them. Sweet Fang, we need a diversion." Her tail flicked sharply. "Follow me." Sweet Fang leapt onto a secondary control panel, activating holographic decoys. Tiny projections of the station appeared in open space, drawing the swarm's attention. The rogue drones followed the holograms, mistaking them for real targets. Ethan quickly adjusted energy barriers to redirect the drones back toward the decoys. It worked. One by one, the drones collided with false targets or drifted harmlessly into open space. The station's main systems remained intact, and the threat gradually diminished. Ethan leaned back, breathing heavily. I can't believe we did that, he said. You were amazing, Sweet Fang purred, tail flicking in satisfaction. We learned, we adapted, together. The station's security team arrived soon after, scanning the lab and perimeter systems. Raylan, the engineer from earlier, approached Ethan cautiously. I saw the swarm neutralized. How did you manage this? Ethan smiled faintly. Let's just say, human ingenuity, combined with a very clever assistant. He gestured toward Sweet Fang, who flicked her tail proudly. The team stared in awe. Raylan shook his head. I don't know if anyone will believe this, but well done. That swarm could have destroyed the station. Ethan exhaled, feeling both relief and pride. We couldn't have done it without teamwork, he said softly, almost to Sweet Fang. Teamwork, she agreed mentally. As the station returned to normal, Ethan realized something profound. Humans had always prided themselves on adaptability, creativity, and courage. But here, with Sweet Fang, he saw those qualities amplified. Her instinct, intelligence, and playful energy had complemented his own abilities, creating solutions neither could have achieved alone. He watched her curl on the console, tail flicking lazily. You really are something special, he said softly. Not just clever, brave, too. And somehow, playful, even in danger. Sweet Fang let out a soft trill as if laughing. Play is part of learning. Ethan nodded. Yes, I see that now. Humans survive, thrive, and discover not just because of strength or technology, but because of curiosity, creativity, and the willingness to adapt. And today, we proved that together, we can overcome almost anything. By nightfall, the lab was quiet once more. Sweet Fang curled on the desk, glowing faintly, while Ethan reviewed logs of the swarm and station defenses. He realized the day had been more than just a battle. It was a lesson in collaboration, ingenuity, and trust. Tomorrow, he said softly, leaning back, we'll continue to learn. We'll improve the lab, refine systems, and maybe face new challenges. But I know one thing. Humans can surprise even themselves, and sometimes the best surprises come from friends you never expected. Sweet Fang purred in agreement, tail flicking contentedly. Together, she thought. Ethan smiled, feeling a surge of pride. The galaxy was full of wonders, threats, and mysteries, but with human ingenuity and unexpected allies, he realized that no challenge was too great. And in Lab 12, on a small research station orbiting a peaceful planet, a human and a tiny fox-like alien had proven something extraordinary. Curiosity, courage, and teamwork could overcome even the most dangerous threats. Tomorrow would bring new adventures, new lessons, and new opportunities to shine. But tonight was proof that humans with creativity and determination could achieve the impossible, especially when guided by playful intelligence from beyond the stars. Ethan watched Sweet Fang sleep, her tail flicking gently. He knew the next challenge was coming. The galaxy was never quiet for long, but for the first time he felt ready. Together they could face anything. The morning sun rose slowly over Station Aurora, casting warm light through the tall lab windows. Ethan stood at his console, coffee in hand, feeling both anticipation and relief. The previous days had tested him and Sweet Fang in ways he hadn't imagined. From the moment she appeared on his desk to the swarm attack, their partnership had grown stronger and today promised something quieter, but no less important. Sweet Fang, as usual, was perched atop his console, tail flicking lazily. She had a look of serene curiosity, golden eyes reflecting the morning light. Ethan smiled. Good morning, Sweet Fang. Ready for another day of discoveries? Always ready, she replied mentally, tail swishing. Ethan chuckled. You know, I never imagined an accident could turn into this. He gestured toward the lab. The holographic grids floated, now stable and precise. The equipment, optimized with subtle improvements that bore Sweet Fang's unique touch. You've changed everything here in ways I didn't even know were possible. We learn. Together, Sweet Fang responded. Their peaceful morning, however, was interrupted by an unexpected visitor. Raylan, the engineer who had seen Sweet Fang during the previous drone attack, entered the lab cautiously. Ethan, you need to come to the main control room. The station council wants to meet you. And your assistant. Ethan froze for a moment. Council? Why? What did we do this time? Raylan shook his head. Not punishment. Recognition, I think. The council saw the data from the swarm defense. They're impressed. Ethan's mind raced. Recognition was one thing, but would they approve of Sweet Fang's presence? Could they understand that a small, playful, fox-like alien had not just survived on the station, but had actively helped save it? He looked at Sweet Fang. Are you ready? Yes. Together. Taking a deep breath, Ethan led Sweet Fang through the station corridors. Staff paused and whispered as they passed, curious eyes following the glowing creature and her human companion. Ethan could feel their skepticism, their surprise, even their admiration. He held his head high. Humans had always adapted to new challenges, and today was no different. The main control room was filled with the station council, a group of humans and representatives from allied species. They were tall, imposing, and serious, yet their eyes softened slightly as they saw Sweet Fang hop lightly onto the console before Ethan. Her tail flicked playfully, and the room seemed to relax. Ethan stepped forward. Council members, this is Sweet Fang. She has been assisting me in lab operations and most recently in defending the station from a rogue drone swarm. One of the council members, a human woman named Alira, raised an eyebrow. A creature assisted in the defense? Yes, Ethan said confidently. She learned quickly, adapted instinctively, and coordinated with station systems in ways that exceeded human expectations. Together, we prevented what could have been a disaster. Sweet Fang trilled softly, and Ethan noticed the council members leaning closer, intrigued. Even without words, her presence conveyed intelligence, curiosity, and courage. Alira nodded slowly. Interesting. And you, Ethan, allowed this alien to operate within station systems without prior authorization? Ethan met her gaze steadily. Yes? And it worked. Humans are known for creativity and adaptability. Sometimes the best solutions come from unexpected sources. Sweet Fang is not a threat. She's an example of what collaboration between humans and other beings can achieve. The council murmured among themselves, clearly impressed by both Ethan's reasoning and Sweet Fang's quiet confidence. One, Elder, a species unfamiliar to Ethan but wise in appearance, spoke. Curiosity and intelligence are not bound by species. You have demonstrated foresight and courage, Ethan, and your companion embodies qualities we rarely see combined: playfulness, intellect, and bravery. Ethan felt a surge of pride. Thank you. I believe humans can achieve extraordinary things when we embrace curiosity, courage, and cooperation, both with each other and with beings from beyond our worlds. Sweet Fang let out a small trill, tail flicking slowly in agreement. The council's approval marked a turning point. From that moment, Sweet Fang was no longer a secret or an anomaly. She was officially recognized as a valued member of Station Aurora. Ethan's colleagues began to approach cautiously, asking questions, offering equipment, or simply observing her interactions. Unlike before, there was no fear, only fascination and respect. In the following weeks, Ethan and Sweet Fang continued their work, refining station systems, improving energy efficiency, and developing creative solutions to complex problems. Sweet Fang's instinctive understanding of technology, combined with Ethan's human ingenuity, produced results that impressed scientists across the station. During one experiment, they tested a new energy redistribution grid. Sweet Fang hopped from console to console, tapping precise sequences and guiding auxiliary drones to assist. The system stabilized perfectly, conserving more energy than Ethan had predicted. He laughed in amazement. You're making my calculations look simple. She tilted her head, tail flicking. Together, Ethan realized something remarkable. Humans were curious, clever, and bold, but their greatest strength was collaboration. Alone, he might have improved the station incrementally, but with Sweet Fang, they could achieve exponential progress. Creativity, courage, and intelligence combined across species could transform problems into opportunities. One afternoon, a minor issue arose. A small maintenance drone had malfunctioned and was drifting toward an energy conduit. Ethan and Sweet Fang rushed to stabilize it. With a flick of her paw, Sweet Fang guided the drone safely back into its dock, preventing potential damage. Ethan laughed. "You saved the day again. Honestly, you're better than any automated system I've ever worked with." Sweet Fang let out a soft trill, her tail flicking in pride. "We saved together." Ethan realized the bond they shared went beyond work. Sweet Fang had become a companion, a teacher, and a friend. Her presence reminded him that humans were capable not just of technological achievements, but of forming connections that transcended species, cultures, and worlds. As the sun set over Station Aurora, Ethan and Sweet Fang sat together in the lab, watching the glowing holographic projections dance across the room. They had faced challenges, adapted, learned, and grown, and now they could look forward to the future, not as a human and a strange alien, but as partners. "Tomorrow," Ethan said softly, "we'll continue exploring, learning, and improving. But tonight, I just want to enjoy this moment. We did it. Together." Sweet Fang purred softly, her tail flicking in agreement. Weeks turned into months, and the story of Ethan and Sweet Fang spread across the station and beyond. Humans and other species came to witness the small, fox-like alien that had changed a lab, inspired a station, and proven that intelligence, creativity, and courage could come in unexpected forms. Ethan often reflected on the lesson they had learned. Human ingenuity wasn't just about science, technology, or raw strength. It was about curiosity, the courage to explore the unknown, and the willingness to embrace cooperation, even with beings completely unlike themselves. Sweet Fang embodied all of that, and reminded everyone that the galaxy was full of surprises for those willing to look. One evening, Ethan leaned back in his chair, watching Sweet Fang curl up on the console, glowing faintly under the lab lights. "You know," he said softly, "I called you Sweet Fang as a joke. I didn't expect you to actually appear. But now, I wouldn't change a thing. You're extraordinary." Sweet Fang flicked her tail, golden eyes closing in contentment. "Together." Ethan smiled, feeling a deep sense of pride and wonder. Humanity had always reached for the stars, exploring planets, discovering new life, and overcoming impossible odds. But sometimes the most extraordinary discoveries came not from data or calculations, but from friendship, curiosity, and the courage to embrace the unknown. And in Lab 12, on a small research station orbiting a peaceful planet, a human and a tiny, clever, fox-like alien proved that together anything was possible. The galaxy was vast, full of mysteries and challenges, but as long as humans maintained their curiosity, ingenuity, and courage, and embraced unexpected allies like Sweet Fang, they could face any danger, solve any problem, and inspire every being they encountered. Ethan leaned back, gazing out at the stars beyond the lab windows. Sweet Fang slept beside him, tail flicking gently in rhythm. He whispered softly, almost to himself, "This is only the beginning. Together, we'll see just how far we can go." And the small, shimmering fox-like alien purred in agreement. Together, the future was bright, the adventures were endless, and humanity, with all its curiosity, creativity, and courage, had once again proven that even in the vastness of space, they could shine, especially when guided by friendship and ingenuity.